Welcome to the next discipleship class. So we have reached point number 9 in our 12 points that prove Christianity is true. Again, this is taken from Dr. Norman Geisler's presentation. I've made some adjustments and alterations to it, but it's essentially his. So we have gone through the first 8 points, and now we're in point number 9. Therefore, Jesus is God. And then we'll go through the other 3 in future presentations. So the outline we're going to follow today is number 1, the argument for miraculous confirmation, the nature of miraculous confirmation, and the challenge to miraculous confirmation that Jesus is God. So the argument for miraculous confirmation is actually seen through the points here in red. We started by if God exists, and that would be a theistic God. I mean, actually, it's all the 8 points, but most notably, point 4 through 8, dealing with miracles. If God exists, then obviously miracles are possible. Miracles can be used to confirm a message from God. The New Testament is historically reliable. The New Testament says Jesus claimed to be God, and then Jesus' claim to be God was miraculously confirmed by, and we saw last time, the fulfillment of many prophecies about himself, his sinless and miraculous life, and his prediction and accomplishment of his resurrection. So we come to point 9, therefore, based on that, Jesus is God. So that means we now look at the nature of miraculous confirmation. So let's start off with the criteria for miraculous confirmation. First, we look at the event should be immediate, not gradual, to qualify as a miracle. So to have miraculous confirmation, obviously you need a miracle, but it has to be an actual miracle, something that can be validated as one. And it needs to be immediate, not gradual. There should be multiple miracles. It shouldn't just be one that is identifying the person as fulfilling some miraculous confirmation. The miracles should be connected with a truth claim in the name of God. Now, this is important because though this is not the sole criteria we see in the Bible, miracles need to connect with a truth claim. That validates, especially in the case of Jesus, that validates not only that he is from God, but he is particularly the Messiah, the Son of God. So we'll get into that a little bit more. And they should be from reliable sources, not somebody that heard from somebody that heard from somebody that heard. They should be direct eyewitness, as we'll see. And then, as an add-on, a predictive element adds to the credibility of a miraculous claim. Now, think about that. If you can actually not just perform a miracle, but predict a miracle and then have that come to pass, obviously that increases the credibility hugely. So the event should be immediate. Look at the first one. Matthew 8:3 says, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will, in other words, he was willing, be clean. And immediately the leprosy was cleansed. This was a leper that had come to Jesus, asked him if he was willing to clean him. Immediately he was cleansed. And then Matthew 8:13, and to the centurion, Jesus said, go, let it be done for you as you have believed, and the servant was healed that very moment. So again, it happens immediately, and then Acts 3 is a good example. Peter said, in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And he took him by the right hand, raised him up, and immediately his feet and ankles were made strong, and leaping up he stood and began to walk. So we see a lot of fake miracles today and things that pass off as miracles, but a legitimate miracle can be validated. You know, it's not like you have to keep telling yourself that you actually are healed when you're not healed. When God heals, he does it immediately, and there's evidence of that. Jesus' miracles were immediate. So note, there is no gradual miracles in the Bible. There was one two-stage miracle, but each stage was instantaneous. So that was the blind man that Jesus healed. The guy said, "What do you see?" He said, "I see men walking like trees," and then he touched him again, and then instantly he was healed. So there was two stages to it, but each was instantaneous. It wasn't over a period of time where his eyesight had to come back. The two stages were audio-visual illustration of Israel's two-stage enlightenment, that they would have one immediately and then further on at the end. If it is gradual, it's not a miracle, and if it's a miracle, it's not gradual. I think we need to understand that going forward in order for proper validation and confirmation. Number two, there should be multiple miracles. Notice it says, which adds confirmation. Now, Acts 1:3 talks about how Luke mentions that Jesus went about showing himself alive for 40 days and had many infallible proofs. In other words, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't people that just thought they might have saw him. There were many infallible proofs. So there are some 250 miracles in the Bible, and there's over 60 miracles recorded in the Gospels alone. Many miracles were multiple healings. It wasn't just one, right? Many people came. Like Matthew 9, Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, healing every disease and every affliction. So this wasn't just a one-off or, hey, I heard. This was something that people were well aware of, and it was done publicly. It was never done secretly. Acts 28, the rest of the people on the island, this is when Paul was on Malta, who had diseases, also came and were healed. So again, Paul doing the same thing on Malta when they were shipwrecked there. Some of Jesus' miracles. He turned water into wine. Again, that was instantaneous. He walked on water. You can't fake that. He multiplied the loaves. He healed a man born blind. That was John 9. He raised a decaying body. That was Lazarus, right? He was 4 days in the grave. Remember, they said, "Lord, he stinks," So he resurrected himself. Now, if you can do that, right? He healed Peter's mother-in-law. Again, immediately she get up and serve them. He healed many different illnesses a number of times. He had the 10 lepers that came to him. He healed a paralytic, right? The one that was let down through the ceiling. He healed a centurion servant, cast out demons, healed an infirmed woman, right? The woman that was bleeding for the 12 years. He healed a man with dropsy, 2 blind men, the withering fig tree, restoring a servant's ear, right? That was when Peter cut off Malchus's ear in the garden when they came out to arrest Jesus. Healing a nobleman's son, healing a withered hand. So again, those are just a number of them, and it should be connected, thirdly, to a truth claim in the name of God. So Moses said, "Hereby you shall know that the Lord has sent me. If the Lord creates something new, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, then you shall know that these men have despised the Lord." So this was the rebellion of Korah in Numbers, and when Korah basically got his posse of leaders together in Israel, though his issue was between himself and Moses and God, and he really had an issue with God because he didn't like the fact that Moses had the position that he wanted. He thought that he deserved it, and he got other people to go along with him, which created the problem. But Moses said, that's fine. He said, this is how we'll know whether God's actually speaking through me, right? So if these guys die a natural death, then God's not speaking to me. However, if God does something new, the ground opens up and then it swallows them up, right? Then obviously God is speaking through me. That's what happened. So that event was connected to the truth claim, and this is why it's important. Elijah did the same thing, right? He said, O Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant. Then the fire of the Lord came down, consumed the burnt offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. So this is when he was on Mount Carmel and going against the prophets of Baal that were employed by Jezebel. And so, again, they cried all day, tried to get their gods to come down and consume the sacrifice by fire. Never happened. And then Elijah got up, and Elijah was confirmed to be God's prophet. And what he was saying was confirmed, that truth claim in the name of God, by the miraculous act that occurred. Jesus said to the Jewish leaders that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins. He said to the paralytic, I say to you, arise, take up your bed, go your way to your house. So again, this was connected to the truth claim that Jesus had the authority to forgive sins, proving that he was God. Jesus to John's disciples who asked if he was the Messiah, he said to them, go and tell John. John was in jail at this point. He had been put in prison by Herod. He said, go tell John the things which you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. So again, you have these miracles that verify and confirm that Jesus was the Messiah. Confirming the apostles' message. Hebrews 2, how shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord, and was confirmed to us by those who heard him, God also bearing witness both with signs, wonders, and various miracles. So again, the truth claim is accompanied by the miraculous, confirming Jesus as the Messiah. It says, truly, John says at the end of his gospel, truly Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, or the Messiah, the Son of God. That is why, right? So again, he had the miraculous that confirmed who he was. Number 4, we have a predictive element that adds to the credibility of a miraculous claim. So Jesus said to the scribes, none will be given it except when they were asking for a sign. None will be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. Just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, even so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So again, there's a predictive nature to this miracle. Moses in the 10 plagues, right? He promised supernatural judgments of God on Egypt, right? From Exodus 4, and that the rod of God would bud in Numbers 17, with demonstrating that Aaron was to have the position of the high priest, and the Korah would be judged, as we saw from Numbers 16. The predictive element of miracles, right? Isaiah said only God could make accurate predictions long before the events occurred. So Isaiah says, even from the beginning, I've declared it to you. Before it came to pass, I proclaimed it to you, lest you should say, my idol has done them. So God could always predict and accomplish because he's living where the idols that the Jews were worshiping at that point were dead. Isaiah predicted Cyrus by name 100 years before Cyrus was born. Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped to subdue nations before him. Now, what's interesting is Cyrus wasn't even a Jew. He was a Persian king. And Isaiah's ministry was in the 700s, where Cyrus was 100 years later. Elijah predicted that fire would come down from heaven and consume the sacrifice, right? Now, though we saw that as a confirmation with a truth claim, that was also predictive. Jesus predicted his resurrection, right? In John 2, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up. Then John adds, but he was speaking about the temple of his body. So John gives you the commentary on that because the people he was talking to at the time were confused by that. Matthew 12, no sign will be given except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days, 3 nights in the heart of the earth. We just saw that. And Jesus said he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things and be killed, and on the third day be raised. From Matthew 16, he was talking to Peter. Tell no one the vision until the Son of Man be raised from the dead. Right? That was in the next chapter of Matthew. Now I tell you before it comes, that when it does come to pass, you may believe that I am he. So again, the he would be added there. That's an ellipsis. It really means, in the Greek, it's just you may believe that I am. So again, at the Last Supper, Jesus is saying, look, I'm telling you these things ahead of time, so when they come to pass, you'll understand that who I am, able to predict them. Now, the unique nature of Jesus' miracles, number one, they were a violation, many were a violation of natural laws, right? Many were of incurable diseases. In other words, it couldn't be an accident that it was cured in some other way. One was of a decaying corpse. We talked about that, was Lazarus. One was a man born blind. That's in John 9. Many were before large crowds, so it wasn't like it was just somebody that was telling of them. There was a number of eyewitnesses. Some were predicted in advance. Even some professional magicians admit that their original context, in their original context, these could not be magic tricks. In other words, there was no way to do a magic trick to duplicate any of what Jesus did. So now we come to the last point of our outline, the challenge to miraculous confirmation. We're going to look at David Hume's challenge against that, which was the classic from history, and then other religions examined. So let's look at David Hume first. So here's Hume's challenge. He says, every miracle, therefore, pretended to have been wrought in any of these religions, and all of them abound in miracles, as its direct scope is to establish the particular system to which it is attributed, so has it the same force, though more indirectly, to overthrow every other system. In destroying a rival system, it likewise destroys the credit of those miracles on which that system was established. So Hume's position is kind of laid out in a logical form here, right? This is his challenge. So he makes this logical argument, right? Miracle claims in opposing religions are self-canceling. He says, this is his premise. Number one, both Christian and non-Christian religions use the same alleged miracles to confirm their truth claims. Number two, but these religions have opposing truth claims. In other words, he understood that pluralism doesn't work. You can't have a theistic God and a pantheistic God and a polytheistic God and all these other kinds of gods at the same time. They're opposing truth claims. Number three, opposing claims cannot both be true, right? That's the law of non-contradiction. And then number four, his conclusion, the same alleged miracles can't be used to confirm the truth of one religion over another. Now, Hume used this, and again, Hume was a couple hundred years ago, and he's caused a great disruption among a lot of people because his arguments appear to be sound. However, they're not. So let's restate it, right? We'll restate Hume's challenge. Miracle argument has a false premise in it, premise number one. So his first premise is false. Number one, in the red, both Christian and non-Christian religions use the same alleged miracles to confirm their truth claims. That's false. Non-Christians use unverified miracle claims. Only Christianity has verifiable miraculous claims that are used. Then that would follow, but these religions have opposing truth claims, which are true. Opposing claims cannot both be true, which is correct. But the conclusion is false. Hence, miracles can't be used to confirm the truth of one religion over another. Because the first is false, the conclusion is false, right? You can't have the conclusion logically follow if the first claim is in error. So the criteria for miraculous confirmation, number one, the event should be immediate and not gradual to qualify as a miracle. There are no gradual miracles in the Bible, only immediate. Number two, there should be multiple miracles. It shouldn't just be one. There are a number of miracles to demonstrate that Jesus was confirmed to be God. Number three, the miracles should be connected with a truth claim in the name of God so that you can not only verify whoever the prophet, or in this case, Jesus, talking about the Messiah, is, but the miracle verifies the messenger. It substantiates not only what they're saying, but who they are. And number four, they should be from reliable sources, in other words, eyewitnesses, and not just some hearsay or somebody just discussing it. And number five, a predictive element adds to the credibility of a miraculous claim. It doesn't need to be there, but it certainly solidifies it once you have the other claims established. So now let's go back to Hume's challenge and restate it. Christianity alone has miraculous evidence of its truth claims. Number one, Christianity alone has verified miraculous confirmation of its truth claims. Number two, other religions have opposing truth claims, which is correct. Opposing claims cannot both be true. Again, the law of non-contradiction, you can't have two things that are opposite and true in the same time in the same sense. And number four, the conclusion, hence Christianity alone has verified miraculous confirmation of its truth claims, and all opposing claims are false, or opposing religions with their claims, as the case may be. So, our final point, other religions examined under the challenge to miraculous confirmation. So other religions, right? The miracle claims in Judaism, miracle claims about Buddha, miracle claims about Krishna, miracle claims for Apollonius of Tyana, miracle claims from Muhammad. So the miracle claims in Judaism, we'll look at that first. Biblical Judaism, there is no conflict between the claims of the Old Testament Judaism and Christianity, since Christianity is a fulfillment of the predictions of the Old Testament Judaism about the Messiah. But post-biblical Judaism, in other words, now that the New Testament is established and a new covenant, there is a direct conflict between Christianity and post-biblical Judaism, since the latter rejects Jesus as their Messiah and Christianity accepts him. So that would now differentiate the two in current day. Post-biblical Judaism, there are no miracles to support their claim that Jesus is not the Messiah. So there are miracles that proclaim Jesus is the Messiah. Judaism has none to demonstrate that he is not. There is no widely recognized central figure in post-biblical Judaism who claimed to be the Messiah and had verified miracles to support this claim. They don't have a Messiah. They're looking for one. I mean, they've stretched it to even see if they could have one come from New York. He was an old rabbi that died some years back, but that's still a problem because the Messiah had to be born in Bethlehem. And it had to be the right Bethlehem. There were two, Bethlehem Ephrata. There have been, of course, many messianic pretenders. We see that exampled in Acts 5. but none provided miracles or gained a wide acceptance in Judaism. Josephus records a miracle in the Jewish War alleged to have happened only 10 to 15 years earlier, in which it was as bright as noon at 3 a.m. in the morning, and a cow gave birth to a lamb. Josephus added, "I would have dismissed it as an invention had it not been vouched for by eyewitnesses and followed by disasters that bore out the signs." So he's saying that somebody claimed that there was this miraculous thing that happened, and then that the Jewish war happened in AD 75, or written in AD 75 to 79. However, unlike biblical miracles, there was no messianic truth claim connected with the alleged miracle. This is dealing with what Josephus just said. The story is based on hearsay evidence, which is unreliable. There's no confirmation of Josephus's story from another reliable source, and even as unusual as a virgin birth is, nonetheless, it is still a human being born of a human, which fits the pattern of each after its kind from Genesis 1:24, not the opposite. How about the miraculous claims about Buddha? Well, there are claims of Buddha performing miracles, but they show signs of being legends for several reasons. In other words, not actual miracles. Number one, they're not contemporary accounts, but much later additions. Number two, Buddhism is a non-theistic religion, which by its very nature does not allow for supernatural acts, since it denies a supernatural theistic God. And C, they do not have a predictive element associated with them. There was no prophecy or predictions within Buddhism. They are not connected with any truth claim to come from a prophet of God. C.S. Lewis said about Buddhism, "But what could be more absurd than that he who has come to teach us that nature," in other words, the natural worldview and context that we live in, nature is an illusion from which we must escape, should occupy himself in producing effects on the natural level, that he who comes to wake us from a nightmare should add to the nightmare? The more we respect his teaching, and talking about Buddha, the less we could accept his miracles. Because if you are in an illusion, like Hinduism teaches, Buddhism, and everything else, if you're in an illusion, you don't know you're out of the illusion. You don't know it's illusion until you're out of the illusion. This is the same issue with Mary Baker Eddy and Christian Science. They believe that everything is an illusion, and eventually when you leave the illusion, you'll be up in nirvana. But the problem is that nobody knows that they're in a dream until they're out of the dream. You only know you're out of it. You only know it's a dream. Once you're out of it, you only know an illusion has been an illusion until you're out from that illusion, and people within it can't make that distinction. How about the miracle claims about Krishna? One form of Hinduism called Hare Krishna claims that Krishna was a supernatural incarnation of God. The response to that? Number one, Krishna did not claim to be an incarnation of the true theistic God, but of a pantheistic God. In other words, everything was God. There are no contemporary accounts of multiple miracles Krishna performed to support any such claim. There were no specific and multiple long-range prophecies which he fulfilled. Krishna did not live a sinless life, and Krishna did not predict and accomplish his physical resurrection from the dead as Jesus did. How about the miracle claims about Apollonius of Tyana? This is in AD 98. It is held by some that Apollonius claimed to be the Son of God and had the ability to do miracles to support his claim. Philostrius, in the life of Apollonius, records post-death miracle stories, including appearances and deification, right? So the Greeks believe that man becomes a god. Christianity teaches God becomes a man. But these claims are legend from Apollonius. Number one, the biography of Philostratus is the only source of the life of Apollonius, and it ends with his death, not resurrection, as Jesus' biographies do. There is nothing supernatural about the Apollonius biography, either as to claims of deity or miracles done to prove such a claim. Number three, the post-death miracle stories are not part of his biography. They are simply called stories or legends by his biographer. And number four, Damas, the alleged source for these stories, is most likely a non-existent person used as a literary device. Nobody ever knew who he was. In other words, none of these things can be confirmed. The style of writing used was a popular literary form of the day called romance or romance fiction. It is not to be taken as literally or historically true. Philostratus was not an eyewitness, but was commissioned to compose his book by Julia Dama, the wife of Roman Emperor Septimus, some 120 years after the death of Apollonius. A possible motive for the publication of Philostratus' work was a desire to counteract the growing influence of Jesus. The miracle stories about Apollonius are contradictory. Some say he died in Ephesus, other in Lindus or Crete, and then appeared later. Finally, how about the miracle claims for Muhammad in Islam? First of all, there are alleged miracles in the Quran, alleged predictions in the Quran, alleged miracles in the Hadith, and alleged miraculous nature of the Quran. So we'll look at these. The alleged miracles in the Quran. The general claim, Muslims use surah, and surah is a term that they use for chapter. So it would be like saying chapter 6, verse 35. So Muslims use surah 635 to show that Muhammad could do miracles. It reads, quote, "If their spurning is hard on thy mind, yet if thou wert able to seek a tunnel in the ground or a ladder to the skies and bring them a sign, what good?" The response, it is hypothetical, if thou wert able. It does not say he was able. Now notice, yet if thou wert able, right? Number two, it implies he could not. Otherwise, why did the charge say it was hard on thy or his mind? Number three, also, why offer the Quran as a miracle if he could do miracles of nature as Jesus did? In other words, if Muhammad could do any miracles, then why would you have to try to squeeze it in there like that? Also, why did Muhammad refuse to do miracles when challenged to do so from Surah 3? How about the alleged splitting of the moon? The claim in Surah 54 reads, "The hour of judgment is nigh, and the moon is cleft asunder," means split in two. "But if they see a sign, they turn away, and they say, this is but transient magic." The response? Number one, Muhammad is not mentioned in the passage. Number two, the Quran does not actually call this a miracle, using only the word sign. And those are the terms there. If it were a miracle, it would contradict other passages that claim Muhammad did not perform feats of nature like this. Number four, a sign like this would have been universally observed throughout the world, but there is no evidence that it was. In other words, the moon never split in two. Even some Muslim scholars say that this is about the resurrection of the last days, not a miracle during Muhammad's day. The phrase, "the hour of judgment," refers to end times. The Dome of the Rock Mosque in Jerusalem, the site of Muhammad's alleged ascension into heaven. The claim, this Isra story or night journey is allegedly about Muhammad being transported to Jerusalem. Surah 17 reads, "Glory to God, who did take his servant for a journey by night from the sacred mosque to the farthest mosque, whose predictions we did bless in order that we might show him some of our signs. Response number 1. Even many Muslim scholars do not take this literally. Quran translator Yusuf Ali says, it opens with the mystic vision of the ascension of the Holy Prophet. Number 2, according to an early Islamic tradition, Muhammad's wife, Aisha, reported the apostle's body remained there. It was but God removed his spirit by night. Number 3, even taken literally, it lacks testimony and has no apologetic value. And number 4, it does not meet the Muslim test for a true miracle. So let's look at the Muslim test for a true miracle. We'll see that in a minute. The claim, the alleged supernatural victory, right? The victory at Badr, we read in Surah 5, O ye who believe, call in remembrance the favor of God unto you when certain men formed the design to stretch out their hands against you, but God held back their hands from you, so fear God. So that's from Surah 3 and 8. According to Islamic tradition, the miracle involved God sending 3,000 angels to help in the battle and the miraculous rescue of Muhammad just before a Meccan was going to kill him with a sword. Response? Number 1, many Muslim scholars believe Surah 8 is speaking of another event and is to be taken figuratively as God casting fear into the heart of Muhammad's enemy. Number 2, Surah 5 is taken by some to refer to another event, possibly to the attempted assassination of Muhammad at Usfan. Number 3, only Surah 3 mentioned Badr, and it says nothing about being a miracle. Number 4, certainly it does not speak of a miracle that confirms Muhammad's prophetic credentials. And number 5, if a military victory confirms his prophethood, was the military defeat at Uhud a sign he was not a prophet? In other words, they pulled out 2 links of the chain from Muhammad's wounds, and 2 of his front teeth fell off in the process. How about, was the Israeli Six-Day War a miracle? Number 6, the Israeli Six-Day War in 1967 was one of the quickest and most decisive battles in the annals of modern warfare, yet no Muslim would consider a miraculous sign of divine approval of Israel over Islam. In other words, this would be something that would be seen as a verifiable miracle almost, but no Muslim would admit to that. So, the alleged splitting of Muhammad's chest, that's also the claim. Islamic tradition claims that at Muhammad's birth, or just before his ascension, Gabriel cut open Muhammad's chest, removed and cleansed his heart, then filled it with wisdom and placed it back in the prophet's chest, Surah 9:94, which reads, Have we not expanded thee thy breast, and removed from thee thy burden, and to thy Lord turn all thy attention? Response. However, even most conservative Islamic scholars take this passage as a figure of speech describing the great anxiety Muhammad experienced in his early years at Mecca. The Quran commentator Yusuf Ali said the breast is symbolically the seat of knowledge and of the highest feeling of love and affection. The alleged supernatural predictions, the prediction of Roman victory. The Quran supposedly predicted the Roman victory over the Persian army at Issus. Surah 30 reads, The Roman Empire has been defeated in a land chosen by, but they, even after this defeat of theirs, will soon be victorious within a few years. Response. Number 1, Ali says a few years means 3 to 9 years, but some argue that the real victory did not come until 13 or 14 years after the prophecy. Number 2, the defeat of the Romans by the Persians and the capture of Jerusalem took place around 614 AD or 615. The counteroffensive did not begin until AD 622, and the victory was not complete until AD 625. This would be 10 or 11 years, not a few, spoken by Muhammad. Number 3, Uthman's edition of the Quran had no vowel points. They were added much later. Hence, in this prophecy, the word, and you can see it there, I can't even pronounce it, they shall defeat, could have been rendered with the change of 2 vowels, which they added in later. You see the change there in red. They shall be defeated. In other words, the difference between C-A-M-E or C-O-M-E in English. Number 4, even so, the prophecy is less than spectacular since it's not that unusual. One could have expected the defeated Romans to bounce back in victory. Number 5, it took little more than a perceptive reading of the trends of the time to forecast such an event. At best, it could have been a good guess. And number 6, there are no multiple long-range predictions in the Quran such as the Bible has. Alleged supernatural predictions. The claim about 10 years persecution. Surah 89 says, by the nights twice 5, which is taken by some to be the prediction of the 10 years of persecutions early Muslims experienced. The response, this is a far-fetched interpretation since even the great translator of the Quran, Abdullah Yusuf Ali, admitted that by the 10 nights are usually understood the first 10 nights of Zulhajj, the sacred season of pilgrimage. The so-called miracles in the Hadith, right? Most miracle claims from Muhammad are not based on the Quran. They occur in the Hadith, in other words, later traditions. These are writings outside of the Quran that the Muslims also use. The claim, there are numerous miracle stories in the Hadith traditions, right, including providing water to 10,000 troops, turning water into milk, trees, wolves, and mountains saluting Muhammad, feeding 1,000 men with one woman's small meal, cursing an enemy whose horse then sank up to its stomach in the hard ground, turning the branch into steel sword, healing of the broken leg of a companion. The response, number 1, none of these are contemporary accounts, and most are 100 to 200 years after the time of Muhammad. They follow the same pattern as the apocryphal miracles of Christ from the century or two after his death. They're legendary embellishments. Number 3, the most reliable collector, Bukhari, admitted that of the 300,000 stories in the Hadith, less than 10,000 might be true. That's over 290,000 that are admitted to be false. Number 4, there is no agreement among Muslims as to which ones are true. There is no one canon of authenticity for them accepted by all Muslims. Number 5, these stories only appeared after Christian apologists pointed out the superiority of Christianity because of its miraculous confirmation. In other words, Islam was trying to catch up. They needed something to use. Many of them bear an embellished resemblance to miracles found in the Bible. They're all contrary to the Quran, where Muhammad repeatedly refused to do miracles. Even Yusuf Ali admitted that Muhammad did not perform many miracles in the sense of a reversing of nature. Number 9, none of them fit the 9 Muslim criteria for a miracle that can confirm a prophet's claim. Okay, so here are the 9 Muslim criteria for a true miracle that none of them fit. Number 1, it is an act of God that can't be done by any creature. Number 2, it is contrary to the customary course of things. Number 3, it is aimed at proving the authenticity of that prophet. Number 4, it proceeds in the exact manner announced. Number 5, it occurs only through the hands of a prophet. Number 6, in no way disavows Muhammad's prophetic claim. Number 7, and again, remember, he claimed to not do any miracles. Number 7, it is accomplished by a challenge to reduplicate it. Number 8, it is announced in advance. Number 9, it cannot be duplicated by anyone present. So let's note, none of the Hadith stories even come close to meeting all these criteria, not even within the realm. The so-called miracle of the Quran, let's look at that. Many Muslims claim that the Quran is Muhammad's miracle. They insist that an uneducated person, now Muhammad was illiterate, he couldn't read or write. An uneducated person, Surah 7, like Muhammad, could not have produced such an eloquent piece of literature as the Quran. The response, number 1, a literary masterpiece is not a miracle. No laws of nature are suspended to produce one. Number 2, Muhammad did not write the Quran. It was written down by others and edited by the third Caliph Uthman after Muhammad's death. Number 3, some critics have shown that the Quran is not a literary masterpiece but contains numerous grammatical errors. Number 4, formerly uneducated persons sometimes have great gifts of eloquence. Number 5, beauty is not a test for truth. Error can be beautifully expressed, and truth can be put in an ugly form. And number 6, if literary beauty is a test for divine origin, the works of Shakespeare and Homer are divinely inspired as well, which Muslims would deny. So if you want more information, you can get this book by Dr. Geisler and Abdul Salib called Answering Islam, The Crescent in Light of the Cross, and it makes the comparison between Christianity and Islam and shows in detail much of what we have gone through. So, in conclusion, of all the world's great religions, Christianity alone meets the criteria necessary to establish miraculous confirmation of its truth claims. Number 2, Christ is the only great world religious leader for whom we have reliable contemporary documents of his teachings and miracles. Number 3, Christ is the only one of the great world religious leaders who claim to be God. Number 4, Christ is the only one who provided multiple, reliably and established miracles to confirm his truth claims. Number 5, hence, Christ alone has been confirmed to be God in human flesh. So that's the end of that. And next time we'll continue on with point number 10. May God richly bless you as you continue to study his word.